Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. It's lovely to see you all here. I know there's lots of familiar faces in the crowd this evening, but for those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Nick Wright, and I'm the Ballycastle Project Officer. It's my role within the council to coordinate the Museum Services programme of activities around our project to restore, refurbish and extend Ballycastle Museum, supported by funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. But this evening, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Dr. Colm Donnelly, formerly of this parish. A historical archaeologist, Colm's research focuses on late medieval and early 17th century architecture, medieval Gaelic Ireland, the Irish diaspora in the USA, and early modern Irish folklife. Together with Professor Eileen Murphy, he's the co-director of the Centre of Community Archaeology, part of Queen's University's Belfast's School of Natural and Built Heritage. Back in June, I had the pleasure of working with Colm and the Centre for Community Archaeology to carry out a 2-week excavation in the townland of Clare as part of our lottery-funded programme. The aim of this excavation was to test the theory that the site had once been the location of Clare Castle, a building that was mentioned in the Ordnance Survey memoirs in the 1830s, although even by that stage, the castle itself had long since disappeared. Over the course of the fieldwork, we had over 250 local volunteers and school children helping to excavate the site. This included all 5 local schools, as well as the local homeschool community. On behalf of Ballycastle Museum, I'd like to thank all of our volunteers and participants for their efforts. I know quite a few of them are here this evening. Sometimes those efforts were in pretty mediocre weather, so again, thank you. Thanks also are due to Colm, to Grace, to Davog, and to the student archaeologists from Queen's who assisted and guided our volunteers through the project. Our thanks again to the funder, the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and my most heartfelt appreciation for the landowners who generously allowed us to park in their driveway, trample all over their land, dig up their fields, and chat and sometimes bother Spud the dog. Tonight, Colm is back with us in Ballycastle to discuss the findings of the excavation at Clare and explore how all of this fits within the story of the ephemeral castles of Ballycastle and the early history of the town. So thank you very much, Colm.
Thank you very much. It's lovely here. It's lovely to be back in the town. It's 40 years since I left to go to Queen's to do a degree in archaeology. So this year has been great because by being involved in the Ballycastle Museum project, it's not an excuse to come down and spend time in Ballycastle again. We had a wonderful fortnight in June during the excavation. Now, as Nick pointed out in his very kind introduction, my background is historical archaeologist, field archaeologist. I would study buildings, primarily castles, medieval castles, plantation castles. Also interested in the Irish diaspora, places like Massachusetts, and excavated out there. And this is just a sort of a summary of some of the publications that I've undertaken over the past 25 years at Queen's. One name comes through time and time again, and has already been mentioned by Nick, and that is Eileen Murphy. Eileen is my better half, with emphasis on the word better. And we do a lot of work together. There's a sort of a dichotomy there. She's from Ireland, I'm Antrim. But she did the edited volume for Fermanagh History of Society back in 2004 for what he knows as Geography Publications. This is a series of county volumes that he's been working on since 1985, publishing them. We got to the stage where Antrim is due to be published early in 2025, and that will be the 32nd volume. It's the last volume in this massive piece of work that we began back in the 80s. So, we're working on the Antrim History and Society volume. There are maybe 30 different papers on it, and one of the papers in it is a paper that Eileen and me started to construct about this time last year, which was called The Castles of Ballycastle. We were not to know just how things would evolve over the course of 2024, and it's meant that we've been working still on this chapter, getting it ready for publication. So much of the stuff I'm talking about here tonight is work that I've been doing in collaboration with Eileen, and it will be published, as I say, in this volume. Now, the last time I used this slide, I was blank, so I had to explain to the audience a blank screen and show them exactly where all these things were located, all these different lordships. Thankfully, it's not doing that tonight. But I'm going to be concentrating very much on the period from about 1500 up through to 1650, really, in this presentation. And this is the period when you've got the great Gaelic lineages like the O'Neills, the McNeill, the McDonnells. They dominate the political landscape in the late medieval period in Ulster. What's remained of the earldom of Ulster has been really pushed back to Carrickfergus and to the Lecale area in County Down. What we have up in the top corner is the Glens and the McDonnells. And that's very much what I'll be focusing on tonight in this lecture. And this is a great turn of phrase that former colleague of Queen's, Tom McNeill, came up with. The Gaelic Sea Province. When I'm teaching the undergraduate students, we do Historic Ireland, and I give my lecture on medieval Gaelic Ulster, I make this point to them that you have to not think of modern geopolitical units. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. You have to recognise that it's fluid in the medieval period, and you have a Gaelic word which basically moves all the way down the west coast of Scotland, comes into Antrim, sweeps down past Donegal, Fermanagh, and away down to Mayo. And this is what Tom's talking about in this concept of a medieval sea province. At the heart of this is the burghens, the galleys. The easiest way for communication, for transport at this time is by boat. So these guys are using boats backwards and forwards from Islay and from Kintyre over here to the Northampton coast. And you can see there, marked on Dunluce, Kinban, Rathlin, Fairhead, and then Torhead, where here the Scots make their warning fires. This is a map that was done in 1595 by a guy called Richard Bartlett. He's working with the English army during the Tudor conquest of Ulster. What he's shown there is this fire that the Scots have, this warning fire. This is where they have their warning fire to bring their colleagues across from Islay and from Kintyre if there's a problem. And if things get too hot and the Tudors have invaded into the lordship of the McDonnells, they will leave and they will go back over to Islay, Kintyre, wait for things to cool down, and then come sweeping back across. So this is backwards and forwards across that channel. Ballycastle is there, but it's not under the name Ballycastle, it's under the name of Marketstown. And this is a fairly common name for our settlement, our greater settlement area at this time. It's in English documents they tend to write Markettown or Margietown. It seems to be associated with the River Margie, and it may derive from the Irish Margie, meaning a boundary river. At least that's what McDonnell, when he was doing the place names book, thought that the original point was. It's actually the boundary river. This is an important boundary river and that's why you have Margate being so important, and also Dunineny, the mouth of the Margate. And the mouth of the Margate is actually the area at the harbour, in there around the seafront. That's the original mouth of the Margate, Dunineny. What's happened is that name's got itself sort of transported across to the Friary, and we associate Dunineny now with the Friary. But that was where it was originally. So you have these connections stretching back into prehistory and the early medieval period. We're in Dalriada. You should bring Cormac McSparren up here. He'll be able to talk to you. My colleague Cormac McSparren, he can talk to you for about 2 hours, 3 hours about that. He's written a couple of big, massive chapters about Antrim and our guide during the prehistoric and early medieval times. I'm going to jump into the story in the 13th century, when the area has been taken over by the Anglo-Norman visits. And they're holding Glenarm, Glencloy, Glenarth, Carry and Ranford. That's their territory. 1383, the family's been led by Owen, and Owen gives his name to the surname McNeill. What you're seeing here is the process of Gaelicization of the Anglo-Normans. They're going feral, for want of a better term. So you get the McEwen visits, from where the surname McEwen comes from. And the death of his son during an attack on the savages of the Cale. That's the family of the savages, I'm not being disrespectful to the people of the Cale. The savages of the Cale. It meant that Owen's granddaughter, Marjorie, becomes the heir of the estates, the Anglo-Norman estates. 1399, she marries Owen Moore McDonnell of Eilean Kintyre, who's the founder of Clan Donnell South. The McOwen visits still continue to be the major power brokers in this area. But then in 1493, the lands of the McDonnells' lordship in the islands is seized by the Scottish king, James IV, because he doesn't trust them. And their independence is gone. The hierarchy of the lordship is basically exterminated, with the exception of Alistair McDonnell, who does a runner. And it's sort of like we're saying with the Tudors, it's the reverse. He comes across here and he settles in the Ballycastle area and bases himself here. And it's really at this point, the early 16th century, that's when you start having a genuine McDonnell presence here in this part of the world. And that is aided by the death of the last of the McOwen Illicit Lords, who's killed in 1522 in the Battle of Knockavoe. Alistair uses this as an opportunity to lay claim to the Glens, using the fact that his ancestor was Marjorie. So he is laying claim to the Glens because, well, he can. He's got the force of arms to do so. By the 1550s, the McDonnells have consolidated themselves in the Glens and they're extending out into the route to the McQuillan territory. And at some stage in the 1550s, Sorley Boy, Alistair's son, captures Dunineny Castle and it becomes another centre of operation for the McDonnells. Now, all of this has been watched by the Tudor administration in Dublin. And they're not a bit happy about this, because here, in their view, you have these interluding Scots coming across here to Ireland, to the Lordship of Ireland, and setting themselves up. And this is not good. They should be, they're a danger to English rule in Ireland. They need to be ousted. And you see from 1551 the first effort by the English to do that, sending up a couple of boats up to Rathlin to attack the McDonnell settlements in Rathlin. It's an absolute disaster and they get wiped out. But they keep doing it. And there's a lot of power politics going on here. Shane O'Neill, the Lord of Tyrone, He is trying to curry favour with Elizabeth. He volunteers his services to go and sort out the McDonnells for her. In 1565, he leads an attack on Ballycastle. Now, this is where our story tonight begins. That was just the prologue. Here you go. 2 letters are written from Shane's camp. And the first of them is addressed as having been written at the new castle in the route, sorry boy, his town. And the second is addressed from the town of Sorley, which is named Ballycastle. 2 things we can take out of this. First, that's the first time we come across reference to the name Ballycastle, is in this letter of 1565. Second, that castle is the new castle. So that's the castle that Ballycastle is named after, is this castle that Shane's based himself at during this campaign against the McDonnells. It's the new castle. It's not actually the castle that was out here, as that we'll talk about slightly later. It's not the castle in the diamond. It's this new castle. So, here we are, lovely image of Ballycastle. You can see there the Mulligan Tower, you can see Fairhead. What you can also see is Ballycastle Beach. And Ballycastle Beach is one of the reasons why the McDonnells like this place. Because those Berlins, you can bring them up onto that beach. You have a great landing place and it's sheltered. So you can have the boats coming across, landing up on the beach, people dismounting. It's a really good place for the ships. And it's protected from the bad weather as well. Dunineny gets mentioned at this time as well. Certainly in the traditional accounts. The traditional view is that this is the home of Sorley. It's probably positioned there to keep an eye on Port Brittas and the beach. We also have then an aerial photograph that we'll talk about in more detail, which is central to the story. And we've got that ring bar as well, and we'll see that in later slides as well. So, 3 sites that I'm going to be really concentrating on. First, Dunineny, the second, the air photograph, and the third, the area in the diamond. Now, Dunineny was excavated in 2000 by Tom McNeill. It was undergraduate training excavation, 6 weeks duration. Tom was interested in Gaelic castle building, and he wanted to use this as an example of a Gaelic castle because it's traditionally assigned to the McDonnells. It's supposed to have been built around 1530 by Alistair. It's supposed to be the home of Sorley boy. So he did his excavation and he found absolutely no settlement evidence or structural evidence belonging to the 16th century until you get to about 1580, 1590. And from his excavation, he reached the conclusion that this was an English Tudor garrison which had been placed in Dunineny in 1585. No evidence of settlement prior to that. The other thing that he identified was that there was building activity in the 17th century, early 17th century, and there seemed to have been a building put in place which looked from the outside like a gatehouse, but doesn't have a back wall. And he came to the conclusion that really what you've got here is a pretty poor castle. He used the word a sham castle. And he makes the point that really, if Dunineny is in use, it's been used as an administrative centre. And it's been used as an administrative centre by the McNeill family. And the McNeill family have been given leases of land up and around about that part of the town landscape by the first decade of the 17th century. But he also highlights the fact that they couldn't have been living in that confined space. They must have been living somewhere else, and we know that there is another castle, Clare Castle. Thomas Fagan, in the Ordnance Survey memoirs, 1838, 1839, Fagan was brilliant. We were so lucky to have Thomas Fagan as our scribe for the Ordnance Survey, because he really was interested in antiquities, and he just wrote down everything. He did Ramon, he did Ballantoy, he wrote down everything. Other guys, other parts of Ulster, are clearly not that interested. He wrote down everything. He was really interested in it. And he says this about in the holding of John McCurdy, about 4 furlongs southwest of the old castle of Dunineny, there stood an ancient castle of considerable extent, said to be founded and for a series of times inhabited by a Scots clan of McNeills, who held some tract of land in the neighbourhood. It was called Clare Castle. A large portion of the walls, together with the fruit garden, existed in the recollection of some of the local inhabitants, now residing near the site of the castle. The walls were of great thickness and run together with mortar of a superior quality. Unfortunately, they didn't mark the location of it on the first edition map sheets, so we don't really know where it was located. But it's still included on the Northern Ireland Sites and Monuments record, ANT 004 081, meaning it's the 81st site recorded on the map sheet for the Ordnance Survey. We do know about Clare Park. Clare Park was looked at by the architectural historian Charlie Brett back in the 1970s, when he was compiling his Ulster Architectural Heritage Society list of notable buildings in the area. And he looked at the building and he said the central element of the house, the central element is 17th century, late 17th century house, and then the 18th century had 2 wings put onto it, and then in the 1880s they castellated, they put on fake battlements onto it. But at the core, you've got a late 17th century house. It's all gone now. Bulldozed away in 2 episodes between 1998 and 2004. So, to recap, where are we going? With a McNeill custodian of the fort of Dunineny from the first decade of the 17th century, we have Tom McNeill's excavation in 2000, which revealed that there wasn't very much going on the promontory apart from the early 17th century, but that it's not particularly impressive. We have documentary references from Thomas Fagan to this castle, Clare Castle, was occupied by the McNeills. We have the townland of Clare, which was known at this time as Clare Castle, up until 1669, and then after that, from 1672 onwards, it drops the castle title and is just called Clare. We have the earliest section of Clare Park dating to the late 17th century, and Brett considers that the work of Daniel McNeill, who's the grandson of Hugh McNeill, the first custodian of the castle. And that then raises the question, where are the McNeills living before they take up occupation in Clare Park in the late 17th century? The obvious candidate is Fagan's Clare Castle. But where is this located? There's an air photograph from 1983. And that aerial photograph, can you see the circle field? And in the middle of the circle field, there's a rectangular shape. Yeah? I'm not just seeing that myself, you all see that. Good, okay. So you have this rectangular feature in this field up in Clare. We took my colleague Conor Graham took the photograph and he draped it over the modern landscape this year. So you can see there, Cayman Park, Cayman Drive has sort of been built in that field at the corner there. You can also see the ring bar shows up pretty well. And then you've got this rectangular feature. What's the rectangular feature? In 2000, two archaeologists were sent out to look at the rectangular feature, Liam McCullum and Jim O'Neill. And they undertook their field walking, looked at the field, what was in the field. The appearance of anomaly suggests that this could be the foundation remains of a bawn. A bawn is a defended farmyard. They notice that the field is clearly undergoing improvement. There's a lot of work going on, there's drains being put in, there's mounds of earth and stone. And they've identified that there's a lot of these stones are looking as if they're dressed. So, clever lads that they were, they brought one from back to Belfast with them and showed it to Marion Meek. Marion Meek was one of the government inspectors at that time. Marion looked at it and said, yeah, it's dressed. The implication being, this is a stone which has come from a building. It's a dressed stone. So it's now on Sites and Wonders record as an aerial photograph, but possibly a bomb. And then Danny Gordon comes into the story. Danny, in his book, makes this very pertinent point that locating the site of the Clare Castle was approximately 4 furlongs southwest of Dunineny. This would place the castle on or near the present Clare cottages, 68 to 70 Clare Road. And 4 furlongs equals roughly about 800 metres. And if you go in a southwest direction from Dunineny to the field, 800 metres, you're on top of that aerial photograph site. And there ain't anything else in the area, in the general vicinity, that would match a bawn or a castle site. There's nothing else on the Sites and Wonders record that you could actually point to. So, this is now a strong candidate for being the location of Clare Castle. And then Nick comes into it. And as part of the project for Ballycastle Museum, they decided that they want to have a community excavation supported by the lottery fund. And the tenders go out. I see it and think, ooh, that looks good. Apply, and I get a nice letter from Nick the next day saying, yeah, we're going to appoint you to do this community excavation. If you can give me a call when convenient, we can coordinate the start-up meeting with the landowner. Very good. And there is the landowner, Marion. And as Nick mentioned in his introduction, none of this could have happened without Marion supporting us. Couldn't happen. And we really were annoying the head of her because she had to put up with our vehicles, she had to put up with buses with school children for that fortnight, she had to put up with our site infrastructure, toilets and all this sort of stuff. She was brilliant. So we're really thankful to Marion for all her help and support in this project. And then Nick, of course, as well. We had a great time working with Nick. I don't think there was a crossword spoken the whole time we were together. So we have our meeting with Marion, we have the permission. The next thing is to try and get to grips with what is in this field. And that's when I bring in my 2 friends from Queen's, Conor Graham and Dr. Thorsten Cathwart. He's German. That's why he's got a strange name. Centre for GIS and Geomatics, basically the techno nerds. And we got Conor to come up and fly his drone, and then someone's look at aerial photographs, and to do some digital surface modelling, and Thorsten to do geophysics. Now, The geophysical surveys, he did magnetometry and he did resistivity. The magnetometry was always a risk because, as you all know, we're sitting on basalt, and the magnetometry doesn't usually come out that well whenever you're on top of basalt. We didn't quite expect it to be so horrendously bad. The great sort of black blob in the middle there, that's a huge spike of data. But from that, we were able to distinguish sites that we could target. Where would we put our trenches? Because this is going to only be a reconnaissance excavation. This is 2 weeks. Identify where you want your trenches and have them in a sequential order from 1 to 5. So 1 is a priority, 2 is the next priority, 3, 4, 5, and we'll see how we're getting on as the week progresses. So we're going to be starting in trench 1. Nick made mention of the crew. One of the best things about working at Queen's is you get to interact with really nice young people. And I had a team of them up with me through the summer. We stayed in the caravan park, brilliant. And they all worked so very, very hard. And I had Dunineny, one of our archaeological technicians, he came up and was my assistant director. We also had local girl Grace McAllister popping in and off every so often whenever she could get time off from her work. So we're really appreciative of having Grace on the crew as well. And as Nick says, this was a community excavation. We had our 5 schools and we had our home school group who came along and were magnificent. In total, we had 201 children participating over the course of 8 days. And that's great because it allows the kids to actually interact with their heritage, directly interact with their heritage. It's something we do at the Centre for Community Archaeology is bring the kids out and getting them dirty. And also, getting adults dirty. We love doing that as well. And I see a lot of the volunteers are here tonight as well, which is great to see. We had 61 people who turned up to participate in the excavation. It's one of these things, it's like the bucket list. There's so many people out there who want to go on archaeological excavations. You're not just restricted to this. We've got another programme at the moment, the Community Archaeology Programme Northern Ireland, which is run, funded by the Lottery Fund, and it's been going for 1 year, another 2 years left. You're all more than welcome to come and work with us over the next 2 years on excavations. You'll see our QR code on the Archaeology at Queen's Facebook page. So we love working with adults and giving people the opportunity to come out and work with us. We also have our open day, because not everybody can get time off work, or maybe not physically fit to actually participate in the excavation. Think of people like Brian here, who don't have the physical ability to actually excavate. So we give people like that the opportunity to come and just topple along and look at what we're going to do on the field work.
I told her she said that. She is the right one, she'll be in trouble.
Okay, so we opened up trench 1. Trench 1 was a whopping great big trench. It was 3 metres wide by 14 metres in length. And we dropped it down right over the top of the line of the enclosure. We went down to depth about 40 centimetres through the plough zone. It was really uniform. And we came down onto the orange surface of subsoil. But there's always this thing at the back of the mind of archaeologists when they're conducting an excavation come down onto the subsoil. Is it the real subsoil or is it redeposited subsoil? Let's dig down into it and see. So we did. We went down another 40 centimetres and it was the real subsoil. We found nothing, no structural remains at all of anything resembling a wall associated with the castle, which was disappointing, as they said. But in hindsight, maybe not that surprising, because remember I said Connor went up with his drone and he did his digital surface model. Marion could have a bowling green out there. That field is so level, there's not anything out of place in that field. And when we think back to what Jim and Liam were talking about in 2000 in their report, I think we're dealing with a situation where the land improvements have obliterated all trace of what was shown in that era photograph. They were probably pretty ephemeral already, but the land improvement was removed. So what happened to Clare Castle? Well, I think Clare Park happened to Clare Castle. I think that whenever they abandoned the old castle in the late 17th century, they used Clare Castle as the quarry. And they took the stones from Clare Castle and they used them to build Clare Park. And then you had the whole changing the place name, because Clare Castle they changed the name, they abbreviated just down to Clare from 1672 onwards. And I also think it was used as a quarry for the outbuildings at 68 to 70 Clare Road. Because if you go around Marion's yard and you look at some of the farm buildings, those are remarkably well cut and dressed stones for farm buildings. And I think that those originated from the castle. And that's what happened to Clare Castle. And the last elements of the castle were destroyed in and around 2000 during that land improvement scheme. So we move on to Trench 2. Trench 2 was very much the trench that we used with the kids, school kids. There was so much going on in Trench 1, we put the kids up in Trench 2. And we sort of spent more attention then on Trench 2 in week 2 of the project. It was a smaller trench, 1 metre by 10 metres, and we excavated again down through a shallower plough zone with 30 to 40 centimetres in depth, and we came down onto a surface. And it doesn't look like much. But if you look carefully at it, you can see zones of activity, which I've labelled here. You have flat surface, clay surface 204, and on either side of it you have these parallel lines of stony compacted clay 202 and 203. The interpretation is that you're looking at the remains of a medieval Gaelic house. And featured down at the bottom end, the 206, may represent a drip gully. Okay. He's convinced. Okay, let's look at them. Let's look at other examples of medieval Gaelic houses. They are ephemeral. They really are ephemeral. If you don't know what you're looking for, you won't find them. You'll just plough on through them. This is one from County Cavan, and you can see the drip gullies. The drip gullies are there to take the rainwater off the thatched roof, so there's no water in around your floor surface. St. McNeill is much better because they were really decent, and what they did was they put in a line of stones to show you the edge of the wall. Very nice. But that's a great big massive thick earthen wall. And then Grace did excavations at Dunineny Castle, out in the field beside the castle. And she came across these two parallel ditches, small ditches. Basically, her interpretation, this is the drip gullies associated with a medieval house. Okay. What are we talking about? We're talking about crux-roofed houses. We excavated this one, the reconstruction drawing. That's the one that we excavated at Tullahole. It's a big, big one. It's a hall. It's a massive big thing. As you'd expect at the inauguration site. The only thing that was there to show us where the hall existed was the drip gully. certain building. Because the whole roof of that building is supported on the timber structures. You have your timber blades coming up and connecting. You have a series of them, you tie them together, you put the roof on. The crux carries the roof. The walls do not carry the roof. They are not load bearing like this place. There's no weight on those walls. And so what happens is you have walls being put in place. Those walls are really only there to keep the wind out. This is a brilliant image here, again, we're back by Richard Bartlett, and his depiction of, from 1602, of Crux houses in Tyrone. Now, he doesn't explain what's going on here, but you can either look at this, they're building houses, or they're taking houses down. Because with a Crux built house, you can abandon that house very readily. You just basically take the roof off, take the cruxes away, and you can carry it somewhere else and you put it up over here. And all that's left is just the mound of that wall and maybe the drip pillar. The use of cruxes continues into the 18th century, and you've got an example if you're ever down at the Ulster Folk Museum. You go into Ballycastle Cottage, you can see one of these 18th century crux built houses. And we also know that castles can be focal points on a landscape. They can be centres for settlement, either within or outside the defended enclosure. Very good example of this is again Bartlett, and this is his depiction of Dunineny Castle in 1602. It's in the aftermath of the war, the castle's taken a hammer, but you can see you've got these 9 little houses within the an enclosed area. I asked Shannon Roman, the Donegal artist, to do a reconstruction for me for the guide card I did on the hill of the Needles in Dungannon. And he came up with this. I thought it was very nice. The great thing about commissioning a piece of work, you can actually have your hand in the design of it. So if you look really closely, you can see 2 things. One, you can see there's a group of boys playing hurling. So really do some hurling. And the other thing, more importantly, you can see a group of horsemen. Those are the O'Donnellys. I use this as an opportunity to get the O'Donnellys, the leading horsemen, into the picture as well. And it's the sort of thing that Grace is picking up as well with her excavation of Dunluce. Again, the castle is a focal point of settlement. In and around that, there will be other people who will be living. She was picking that up with her excavation of a medieval house. Okay. Artifacts. Many of us remember Jordan. Jordan is actually a pottery expert, which is really handy because you can go to him in bullion and you can say, do my pottery for me. And he did it. So he looked at the pottery and he went through it. The first thing that was quite surprising was the fact that we've got 6 shards of prehistoric coarse pottery. We didn't expect that. We've also got this glazed coarse earthenware pottery and tableware, 17th century to 20th century. That's probably what's called manuring. These are probably coming out with manure in the spring on the back of the cart, because people, if they break a plate or whatever, they used to do it into the midden. And then the midden was taken out and scattered across the ground. The animal waste scattered across the ground, and you get this then applied into the soil. But there's shards of pottery there which stand out: the Cistercian-ware pottery and the Staffordshire-type slipware. 16th century to 18th century, 17th century to 18th century. So they're sort of in the right vicinity for what we're proposing was going on at the site. Now, we'll move on. This is the earliest detailed cartographic representation of Ballycastle, and it belongs to 1734. And I find it really interesting. One of the things I find really interesting is, today, Ballycastle is pretty much still contained within the townland of town parks. And it's pretty obvious that this was created by Colonel Hugh Boyd in the 18th century, whenever he takes ownership of the town. Prior to that, you've got 10 land units, which were all merged to make Town Park. And there's some of these here, are still familiar in our lexicon of Ballycastle. Leyland, we all know where Leyland is. Strumchess, British Port, Port British. There's some that we don't. I've never heard of Simon's Park. Many of you have heard of Simon's Park. If you have, you can tell me whereabouts it is located. But you have this amalgamation. And if we go closer, the cartographer in 1734 draws in individual important buildings, like Ramon Church, Dunineny Castle. He also draws in two centres of settlement, clearly centres of settlement. The first, surprise, surprise, is Castle Street, the Diamond, and the Castle. The other one is Strumchess. And we hear in the 17th century documents this talk of the fort and town of Dunineny. And we hear talk about the origins of the Lammas Fair being at Dunineny, and people wonder, oh, what's going on here? I think what you've got is there was a settlement at Strumchess, clearly marked in the map. That settlement was one of the original hubs of Ballycastle. And as we move into the 17th century through into the 18th century, it moves, the centre of the settlement moves down into the Diamond and around the castle, but also down to the harbour area. And Strumchess becomes forgotten about. So you can chart the development of Ballycastle using these maps. The next one that's available is 1785, and we're starting to move away from the 17th century style, early 18th century style pictorial maps. We're now starting to get plotted maps where properties are shown and where you've got the actual houses are shown. You can see there the Diamond area, and in 1756 you have the construction of Holy Trinity Parish Church. The thing to note about the castle in 1734 is it's still got a roof on it. The general consensus is that in the 17th century the castle goes through, it takes a hammer during the Cromwellian period. It is then, by 1665, the Earl of Antrim has got back possession of it. Whether his mum, the Countess, has been allowed to return and is living on it is unlikely. But the castle is still in use in the 1660s. The fact that it's shown in fairly good nick in 1734 suggests that it may have still been habitable, possibly. If it was for much longer. You can see then in 1830 the ruins of the castle are marked. You can see how the Diamond is evolving. We've got in 1785 we have got the Blind River running down through, just there comes in where the Boyd Arms is located, and there's a bridge there, bringing you across from Castle Street down onto what's now Ann Street, and runs all the way back there behind Ann Street and then out to the Toe. That's all culverted over. And you can see the blue line there, that's basically the water, the Blind River, then heading on down, past Ann Street, down into the River Toe. Ruins of the castle, 1830, 1876, no castle. This is a view of the Diamond. It's in the headmaster's office in the Ballycastle High School. I know it was a salt day. And it's shown an October market of 170 years ago, 1854. And you can see a fascinating social history here of all the different people selling their wares and buying. But you can also see the Holy Trinity, and then you've got this depiction of the castle. And you're looking at, what, 120 years later for the 1734 map. The castle's not in good condition. The perspective on this isn't great either on the castle. It's very hard to actually work out what is what. It looks as if you've got a wall with another wall sitting perpendicularly on top of it. So it's not very well detailed, and it's very hard if you want to, and you can, use these sorts of images to interpret a building even if it's demolished. Back in 1902, Francis Bigger published a paper, The Ballycastle, in the Ulster Journal of Archaeology, and in that he included two images of the castle. The first is this one from about 1850 by F. Hubbard Smith, and it's a painting which were drawn, which is in the possession of the Reverend Canon French of Donineny, which is in Cardiff. I don't know where that is, that drawing is now. But he also had access to another image from around 1850, which is a coloured sketch that was in the manor house. So he's seen these, he's redrawn them. It's not great detail. It looks a bit wonky. It looks as if it's got a massive glass-faced batter, and it's got these sort of like very strange looking parapets. This is a bit better. This is a sketch in the possession of Hector McDonnell, and it shows you the castle. You have the north wall. You can start to then pick out details. You can see that there's a fireplace. You can see that you've got the gable crowned by a chimney. You have steps, step gabling. You have large windows. You have doorways leading into the partisans at the corner. But the castle is not in good condition. You've got the north wall, you have the half of the west wall, the south wall's gone, and the east wall is gone. There is a tradition that the castle got modified, shall we say, in the 1750s during the construction of Holy Trinity Church. That it was slightly in the way. I think it was probably in the way, and it was also judged to have been a good quarry. And I'd say a lot of the stone from the castle went into Holy Trinity. I don't think QUB had that much sympathy for the castle. And also, there's this spate of date stones in houses on Castle Street that are recording their construction in the 1730s and the 1740s. And included in this is this date stone lintel with WRKGS 1625. Don't know what that means. And it's on a lintel, and that was in the fabric of one of these houses, 63 Castle Street. It's taken out during renovations in 2000. It was then went off to the Historic Environment Division. They had it, and now, thankfully, it's back to Nick in the museum, which is brilliant. It's the right place it should be. So, but you've got this period, I think, in the 1730s, 1750s, where the castle is looked on as old and doesn't serve any purpose, and we need stones for these building projects that Boyd is involved in. Let's use the castle. And that's why the castle gets into such a bad condition. The bestest image we have of the castle is Lord Mark Carey, who is married to the Countess of Antrim, Charlotte. And he was an admiral in the Royal Navy, and he was a really good cartographer and also wonderful artist. So much so that Anne Castle has published a volume of his images in this An Admiral's Eye View. And in that book you will come across these two images. These two images are brilliant because you can actually detect the real architectural detail. You can see those twirled out partisans, and you can see that that is what we call Scots style. Likewise, the stepping that we've got on the gable. You can see in the interior, there's that fireplace again, and you can also see a window, and then you've got the doorway leading into the bartizan. So you can actually now start to interpret what this castle looked like, and from that you can start looking for parallels that are still outstanding. And you can go to Lowland Scotland to find those parallels. One of my favourite buildings, Colm Castle in Fries and Galway, built around 1575. There's a threat, violation. Does that mean anything, Nick? These are Scottish, Lowland Scottish tower houses. And what you're seeing in the early 17th century, Randall McDonnell is bringing new people in. He has his Highland Scots supporting families. He's also bringing in Lowland Scots. Ballycastle Castle, built 1625. Ballycastle was built 1625. I would hazard that Randall got the same masons who did that work for the Shaw family to come up to Ballycastle and to construct the castle in Ballycastle for Lowland Scots masons, because there's a remarkable similarity in the proportions and the architectural detail between the two buildings. So, to conclude, we've discussed 3 castles which were all in occupation at about the same time in the early 17th century. You've Dunineny Castle, you've Clare Castle, and you have the McDonnell Castle in the Vine. We haven't mentioned the new castle for quite some time, have we? Where is the new castle in all of this? We have options. Option 1, the new castle is a name for Dunineny. It's maybe Sorley Boy has done some building work at Dunineny, and this is basically his new castle. The problem with that is it doesn't connect with what Tom McNeill found when he did his excavation in 2000, which was no really new work done until the early 17th century. So, second option is that the new castle is used to distinguish Dunineny from a new build, perhaps Clare. And, the first time Clare Castle is mentioned is in 1605 as a place name. If it's been called Clare Castle in 1605, it means that there has to have been a castle there for the land property, for the land unit to be named after. So, is it the case that Clare Castle has its origins? Maybe it's there in the 16 or 1560s, and that this is the new castle. Maybe. Or, the third option is that the new castle was built somewhere in the area that is now the Diamond, and that it was demolished and replaced by the early 17th century tower house. And that was the suggestion that was first put forward by George Hill back in 1877 in his McDonnell's Land. So have we any evidence to support the notion that there may be a 16th century castle in the Diamond? There's been work undertaken, because it's known that this is an important area, this part of Ballycastle, it's an important area. There has been conditions based on planning in this area. And as a result, there have been archaeological conditions put in place, and those have led to archaeological monitoring undertaken. Most of them haven't really proved anything other than negative evidence. There's nothing here. So they were a bit disappointing. The one that wasn't disappointing was this one that was done in 2009. Remember, this new sewer scheme was being put in place, and it sort of ran right along the front of the gates fencing at Holy Trinity. An archaeological company was sent in to do the work. The report is online on the Sites and Monuments record. You can read it. The conclusion was that they identified a well and 2 stone walls, one of which appears to predate the 1740 construction of Holy Trinity Church. And there was 5 photographs and no information as to where these walls were, or indeed where the well was. For that information, we have to turn to Danny McGill. Because Danny clearly took a huge interest in this work, to the point that he went every day and he wrote an account, his own report on what was being done. Took photographs, labelled it all, put it online, and then he published it, a summary of the work in the 2010 edition of the Glynn's. And from that, we get a much better idea of what was being found by the archaeologists. And in particular, he did his own little sketch plan, which is invaluable. Because you can see here from Danny's sketch plan, he's labelled it all, and you can see the well, the location of the well is at B, just sort of at the corner. And then you've got this 1 metre wide stone wall at D, and then you've got a 1/2 metre wide stone wall at F. And those 2 walls are going headed straight in to Holy Trinity Church in that direction. So, question is, are those walls associated with the new castle? Are they part of the fabric of the new castle? Or are they the remains of the outbuildings? We know there were outbuildings associated with the early 17th century castle. And that's where we have to leave it for this time, because we can't answer that question. And so, thank you very much.